Right. And
Yeah.
you know, the kind of compelling part of your story is, I mean, well, the story itself, you guys are so open and vulnerable about it that it's it's so raw. So in the day and age of highlights, like people's highlights in social media, for you guys to just open up and say, "Hey, this happened," it was like a breath of fresh air for me. And the crazy part is that your wife is a midwife.
She is. Yeah.
And so like she's in the profession of bringing babies into the world for
Yeah.
other women.
Yeah.
And for what happened, the stillbirth,
Yeah.
for it to happen to her, like what are the chances, right?
Yeah. I mean, having a stillbirth is very low, right? But then for the mom to be a midwife, I mean,
Yeah.
that was a lot of counseling. There was a lot of therapy through that. Like I remember leading up, the week or two leading up to her going back to work was huge because we didn't know how she was going to react. We
Right.
didn't know what it was going to be. And I think we had mentioned it or we had talked about it. I'd have to go back and listen, but it wasn't easy. Like
Yeah.
it was hard. After her first delivery, she had to go into a room and had to just kind of cry
Wow.
and just kind of deal with the pain because it was so in her face.
Yeah.
And then her practice really did a lot in terms of protecting her and hedging it a little bit.
Yeah.
But you can't stay away from it forever, especially in her business, in her industry.
Right. I think you mentioned that her was it a hospital, a clinic?
Yeah.
Yeah. They handed out pamphlets to say,
Yeah, there's a little note that they gave to patients.
Yeah.
Like this was like probably like the week or 2 weeks after,
Mm-hmm.
mentioning that, hey, your physician, your healthcare provider suffered a loss in
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z, and that we were very appreciative of that.
Yeah,
and, you know,
yeah.
them being kind of respectful through the whole process.
You know, it's through your podcast and your story that I realized. So you know how they say don't tell people about your pregnancy for the first 3 months. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a Korean thing or not, but yeah, had that, and I never understood that. I always thought, why? Like if you know you're pregnant, why not celebrate it with people?
Yeah.
But you guys mentioned how it's one thing dealing with the actual loss, but having to be constantly reminded by people asking, "Oh, what happened to your baby?" or
Yeah.
"Did you have your baby?"
Yeah.
Like you were talking about how difficult that was.
Yeah, it's tough, and surprisingly enough, and obviously, as you have, you may have friends who are married and are trying as well. Yeah, people don't talk because at least within the first 8 weeks, I believe, it's
Right.
still very, I don't want to say up in the air, and I'm not a professional by any stretch, but what I've learned through it is that people are hesitant because miscarriaging, that's not even a real word. Miscarriages are so common.
Yeah, yeah,
But with people, like for new moms, especially first-time moms who suffer through miscarriage, it's a tough topic because you get the excitement of having a child, and all of a sudden, you know, wherever you might land on the spectrum of life or whatever, you're readying yourself for this next season of life, and all of a sudden it's taken away.
yeah.
And what I realized through the process is that that's what it felt like. Like we were given this opportunity, and it was almost like a given, and then it was taken away from us.
Right. Well, in your situation though, it's 8 months. Most
Yeah.
people think you're in the clear by then, right?
Which I would say you are. So if there
Yeah.
are any people who are pregnant in their 8th month or, 37th, 38th week, it is uncommon, right? Like something has to happen. And, Mimi tells me, or she had mentioned through some experiences that she's heard where they go in for delivery and they lose a child because the umbilical cord. There's a lot of,
Yeah.
it's just like up in the air.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think there's two sides of the coin. I think, yes, you can expect to have a child, but on the other side of the coin, it's still a miracle every time a child comes in, no matter
Right.
how many times it happens,
Right.
or no matter how many people you meet who've had healthy children. Like every single one is still a miracle, because so many. And this is something that my wife would, it's a testimony for her, in that so many body systems have to work together to bring life into this world, and God orchestrates it perfectly. And it's not easy by any stretch, right? But it's such a perfect balance of things
Yeah.
that even the slightest misstep could cause such a devastation,
Yeah.
which is something that we suffer through, But at the end, it happens. It happens more than we would think,
Right.
And the one thing, if I would say there is a blessing, is that because of our story, putting it out there, and us being at a place where God really moved and worked in our life so clearly, that it gave people the courage to be like, you know what, I struggled with this. Thanks for telling me your story. Now, I can deal with the 2 miscarriages or the 3 miscarriages
Right.
in the first 5 years of our marriage, and And people always ask, like, oh, hey, are you thinking about children? And you forget behind the curtain, like, we have been, but we've been struggling through it and so on
Right.
and so forth. Right. And
Yeah.
I think we take it for granted
Yeah.
because it's just one of those things that I guess just happens. But one of the things that I realize is that, you know what, it's not as clear cut as a lot of people would think.
Yeah.
Not to say like pregnancy is something we should be afraid of,
Right.
but on the other side, it taught me to understand like people who've been married like 6-7 years. I shouldn't assume like, oh, they're not wanting kids.
Right.
But like
yeah,
there could
yeah.
be 4 years that they've been going through like IVF or other means of, other things. And I just helped grow our compassion and grace towards people and their stories and hearing that. And that's probably been the best part of it all.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually for me as a listener too, I think I got much more sensitive toward the topic because yeah, if in your case it's kind of crazy because she was like showing and
Yeah.
everything, but I'm sure people go through it before they show.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you never know what's going on kind of behind closed doors.
For
So
sure.
to be insensitive and throw topics out there like, oh, you guys must not want babies because you haven't had a baby yet. Like
Yeah.
that could come off extremely insensitive to
Sure,
a couple
yeah.
who is actually trying.